Welcome everyone to the Chicago Bears franchise. My name is MrHurriicane, and today we're going to recap the second year of the series and also take a look at what could be happening in this upcoming offseason. The second year was quite the roller coaster ride. This season was one of the more weird seasons, I think, of any franchise I have done. So let's just start by going through our schedule quick. I knew that coming into this year, we didn't address every need that we had. The offseason didn't give us a great opportunity to address cornerback like I'd wanted to. I was only able to get really one starting offensive lineman instead of two, and we didn't really have a big free agent splash. Our big move was basically keeping Cameron Meredith, who missed the first year of the franchise. So we came into this year and beat the Packers twice in the first 4 games. These games were pretty fun. The Packer games have been exciting in this series. We've made some big upsets. This game was a 45-38 win where we saw Mitchell Trubisky play one of his best games with 4 touchdown passes, and he was very accurate on just 21 pass attempts. Jordan Howard had a tremendous game, and it was just a great showing for us, beating the Packers here twice. But the Lions proved to be our biggest challenger in the division this year. We lost both of our games to them, but swept the Packers and Vikings matchups. Now, we started this year 2-5, and the offense had a lot of growing pains. The offensive line wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. I thought our rookie left tackle, Frederick Chicolo, did pretty good this year until the matchups got really tough, but right tackle was always one of our largest weaknesses. Now, in this Seahawks game here, after losing a couple games in a row, this is where I decided that we were going to play Pat McChesney, and the reason I did that is because Mitchell Trubisky wasn't playing well. We saw McChesney at least do well in the preseason. I couldn't explain why, but I wanted to see him play, and plus just I needed a different change of pace. I needed something new because I feel like I kind of had to refresh a little bit on offense here in the game. And I think this did the job. Like, the Seahawks game was tough, but the Vikings game, we come back to get the victory. We didn't have like a tremendous passing day or anything, but I felt like these 2 games at least were enough of a refresh to where I could bring back Trubisky, and we started playing some smart football again and played a lot better, and we had a lot of games in a row here with no interceptions. I think the Seahawks game through the Cardinals matchup, we didn't have any picks, and we also saw Trubisky play some of his best games here in the second half of the season. So we bring him back. We still want him to be the franchise quarterback, and he gave us some solid games that gave me hope for the future. We won a really close game here against the Cardinals after a couple decisive victories, and this Cardinal game I thought was really fun because both defenses played good football, and it was a struggle to get points. They had to really be earned, but we were able to win that game. We go into the 49er game, and this is where the defense really didn't do well, made too many mistakes. We had to get a big comeback going in the second half, and if I had any idea of what I was doing on the 2-point conversions, maybe we end up winning this game. But we came back from down, I think it was 25 points or something like that, and we brought it to within 2, but we lose. Then we lose to the Patriots 13-6. Another really low scoring game, and I know we had chances to win this game and get maybe a step closer to the playoffs, but losing both of those games definitely cost us the playoffs as we finished 9-7 and just a half game out of the postseason, with both wild cards being 9-6-1. So this year went from being 2-5, we don't look very good, we're probably looking to the future, to all of a sudden things are looking up. We make a run at it the best we can in the last quarter of the season, but the 4 wins in a row were not enough. Now, I thought that our schedule was actually pretty easy. I think our last 4 games didn't give us the best opponents. The Vikings had a down year, the Dolphins were hurt, and the AFC East just in general wasn't very good. We almost snuck into the playoffs. I don't think we would have been a very good playoff team, but it still would have been cool to make it there and have a chance. But regardless now, at 9-7, we look ahead to the future. And I do feel pretty good about the team now. I think our offense grew over the course of this season, and I think that we're actually in a pretty good position heading into next year with less needs. Now, Cameron Meredith, we all know how good he was for us this season. He was basically our best player. I may do some kind of MVP voting, but I can't see it going to anybody but Meredith, who had 78 catches, almost 1,200 yards, and 12 touchdowns. Nobody else came close to him in production, although Paul Richardson only played like half this season. He only played 9 games, as you see in this column. But when you look at his numbers and like average them out, not too bad compared to where Meredith was. If you turn this into a full 16-game sample, you're like, 55 catches or so, maybe 1,000 yards, with like some more touchdowns. But Richardson gave us big plays on few catches, and that's his role. And as soon as he was healthy, he gave us that immediate impact. And going into the future, I know he's going to be important to this team. I do want to go back to the quarterbacks quick and talk about Mitchell Trubisky heading into what is going to be his 3rd season. He has missed the final games of each of his first 2 seasons. I think all the sacks that he's taken has dropped his injury rating, and that's why it's currently, I think, an 84. And we're still working on developing him as a passer and getting his accuracy a bit more under control. It's a larger project than I had thought it would be, but I guess I can't be too surprised. I still want to be patient with Trubisky. I want to give him a better offensive line. I want to give him some more time to get the XP and the ratings a little bit higher. And I think I'll reevaluate this spot after next year. I might still look at a backup quarterback for next season because Andrew Leonard was pretty shaky. And with his slow development, I'm not sure how much better he's going to get. As much as Pat McChesney was a preseason standout and a really fun player to follow for that time, I don't see him as a backup quarterback. I just don't think he's a good enough passer to ever be a starter or be the backup that can win you games down the stretch and take you into the playoffs. Interceptions were a major problem. They were both decision related and accuracy related. I really want to cut down on them next year because 25 in one season is just ridiculous. Now in the backfield, I think things are a little more stable. I like our trio of running backs a lot, as most of you know. Jordan Howard suffered a lot of injuries this season, and he was taken out of games and then missed some as well. I'm not sure really how many games he lost this year because there were a couple where he got hurt and didn't get to play much in. But Benny Cunningham did really well. Howard played 11 games here. I'd say maybe 9 or 10 of those were really complete games. Benny Cunningham, I mentioned going into this year, I thought he would be good as a spot starter. Little did I know he'd have to actually fulfill that role. He played about as much as Howard did. He was more efficient. I thought he did a really good job getting yards after contact, which is more Howard's game. I'm not really sure if he did better in that regard. If you look at yards after contact, they're really even. Then you factor in Tariq Cohen, who's a big play threat. Sometimes we've seen fumbles be a problem for him or drops, but I think he's a really solid player, and I'm glad we'll have him for at least 2 more seasons. I don't really want to shake up this running back stable going into the future, but Benny Cunningham is 29 now, so there's a chance I do end up getting a running back this offseason, and I'll show you that on the draft board when we get to that part, because there is a mid-round running back that I think is a major steal. Let's talk about the other receivers now. We did bring in some other new players with Jacob Tamme and Quincy Enunwa. I'd say Enunwa was a major disappointment this year, and his season couldn't have gotten out to a much worse start. I ended up benching him for Kevin White. That didn't last a long time. Enunwa came back, and eventually I think the drops were no longer an issue, but he definitely wasn't as reliable as I wanted, and he struggled to separate at times. He is under contract still for 1 more season, but I'm not sure if he'll be on the team past next year. I still look at receiver as a need to give us more stability as that complement to Cameron Meredith. Maybe that player can be Marquise Cole, but we just don't know enough about him right now. He's not a great route runner, so you're going to be concerned about separation. I think that the other skills are certainly there. He could be a great red zone threat, but he only had 4 catches this year and hardly played, so I think the preseason is going to be big for him, especially if we bring in another receiver that might even take the few snaps that he had. At tight end, I did like Jacob Tamme, although he missed some time. I thought he was a better receiver than he was going to be. Then Deion Sims gave us 4 touchdowns. I think he's also very reliable, and I assume that he'll still be on the team throughout the rest of his contract, which will be running out next year. Then there's Adam Shaheen, who hasn't played a lot. Less this year than his rookie year, actually. I do think next year he needs to get that second tight end job instead of Jacob Tamme, so that eventually he's ready to be the starter on a full-time basis. On the offensive line, we had rookies at both tackle spots, and Bennett Jennings certainly had a tough season. I gave him snaps because I didn't think Charles Leno was playing well enough, and I at least wanted to give snaps to someone who had a better chance of developing. Jennings was a 7th round pick, and I think that he's still pretty good value for a 7, but maybe he's just a better backup swing tackle than a starter at this point. He's not a great pass blocker, and that's really what we need. We also missed Josh Sitton for 5 games, and I thought Javonte McKinney actually held his own at right guard. He's another one of our young offensive linemen. We went really young this year, actually 3 rookies, which typically is a bad situation. He was undrafted this year, so a 7th round pick and an undrafted player made up the right side of our line, and neither were proficient pass blockers. But I think that both might have a future. McKinney especially could be a starting caliber guard with some good development. To the defense now, and leading us in tackles is Adrian Amos, who played most of this year at strong safety. I do think that his better position will be free safety, but with him and Eddie Jackson, only one can play that spot. I think they're both suited for that role. Amos is a pretty good strong safety, though. I mean, he made a lot of tackles, and I don't think he missed too many, although that low tackle skill does concern me a little bit. But I already gave him a big contract, or a decent-sized contract for a safety, and I'm pretty happy that he's going to be around with the defense still and be one of our building blocks. We have a lot more veterans on this defense, it feels, than young players that we can build around for multiple seasons. One of the veterans that we have is Jarrell Freeman. He's an excellent player against the run, but this year he took a step back against the pass. And that is kind of why we had to get Marcus Calhoun into that role. Calhoun was busy this season. He played way more than I expected. Of course, there was Danny Trevathan, who suffered a season-ending injury in the preseason, so that opened the door for Calhoun to play a lot. 96 tackles, playing 774 snaps. He had a forced fumble, 2 interceptions, and I think he's our best coverage linebacker by far. He'll be a nickel player moving forward on a regular basis, I think. If we get Trevathan back healthy, I still think that instead of Freeman, we could go with Calhoun in coverage. But now that I see these ratings, I expect that Trevathan and Freeman might have almost identical ratings in a lot of respects. So maybe it'll just be Calhoun and whoever's the most reliable. I think our safety tandem overall was strong. Eddie Jackson had 3 interceptions and showed off great range. Prince Amukamara and Terrence Newman were a better duo than I expected. Newman's season was not good to begin, but eventually what was a big game changer in turning us around from a 2-5 record was fixing the defense. And the biggest thing I did to do that was by playing a lot of off-man and not getting our corners up in press situations because they just didn't hold up. We gave up too many big plays, and we just couldn't compete. So we play a lot of off-man. All of a sudden, these players became a lot more effective. I think Amukamara can still play in press, but certainly Newman struggled there. But when we backed him off, that speed now wasn't as much of an issue, and he was able to read and react and make a lot of plays. And he ended up leading the team with 7 picks at age 40. Let's talk pass rush now. Pernell McPhee, he was maybe the MVP of the first year of the series. This year, it was strange. He was quiet for the first 10 games or so. And even though he took a step back this year in production, the way he ended the year was as strong as you could have asked for. Look at all these games here where he had no sacks. Does it show downs played in here? I don't think so. But there were a lot of games with just no sacks. Didn't say his name much, but late in the year, 4, 3, 3, 2. McPhee was one of our best players in the last quarter, and was a big reason why we won those 4 games. The pass rusher I really want to talk about, though, is rookie Dante Rooks. We relied upon a lot of late-round picks and an undrafted player to do a lot of work for us. Dante Rooks, definitely not a complete player at this point, but he can rush the passer, which is one of the most important jobs in the NFL. 13 sacks, 55 tackles. He filled in a lot for Akeem Hicks, and he kind of played some left end and some right end at times. Thought he produced better as a left end when Hicks was out. But he gave us a lot of great play, way more than I could have expected, and I'm sure that he's in the race here for Rookie of the Year, which is definitely decided, and we'll check here in a moment. Leonard Floyd, 8 sacks this year, also battled some injuries, which was a theme on this team. There were a lot of players who were banged up at one time or another. Floyd still has to get a little bit more consistent. Jonathan Bullard, excellent role player. I think he's good enough to be a starter, but I think we have 3 defensive ends that are capable of doing that. Both him and Rooks, and then Akeem Hicks. Carlos Romero, undrafted pass rusher, maybe our best pass rusher off the bench at that position, gave us 4 sacks. Eddie Goldman, 4 sacks, plays nose tackle, and plays a lot less than other players because he doesn't really play much in the nickel for us. Akeem Hicks had 4 sacks, and then a couple more here down the list. I like seeing all these turnovers here, and hopefully we can still get many turnovers in the future and not turn the ball over so much ourselves. This is a lot of interceptions, and I'm sure our turnover differential is still really bad. One thing that can't be overlooked is just the amount of pick sixes we had as well. Prince Amukamara, 3 touchdowns, Amos 2, Newman 2, Callahan had 1. That's a lot of defensive touchdowns. So this year we finished with the 27th ranked offense, which I feel a lot better about it than just 27. 14th in defense, but 26th in points scored and 11th in points allowed. So we were really bad at scoring points, and consider that we scored probably the most in the NFL by a wide margin from our defense. That means we need to figure out how to get this team in the end zone more in year 3. We were the 2nd worst passing team, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with us losing a lot of yardage from sacks. Still, though, we don't have a lot of big stat lines from our quarterbacks. We had some 3 touchdown games, but not many big yardage performances. On the ground, though, we were 2nd best in the NFL, and it helps having 3 running backs who all contribute in their own ways and can give you some big playability. We scored 23.9 points per game. We were bottom 5 in passing touchdowns, and also bottom 5 in rushing touchdowns. So a big disconnect there between high rushing yardage, but low touchdowns. Defensively, how do we do against the pass? We did give up a lot of yardage. That was a thing, but we usually play well in the red zone and we get turnovers. So below average against the pass, and against the run, pretty solid. We did lead the league in sacks by 1, and that took a big effort from Pernell McPhee in the last quarter of the season. And interceptions tied for 1st as well. Very productive defense. We were the worst 3rd down team in the league, and I think a lot of that comes from sacks forcing 3rd and long. I don't think it's as simple as getting another 3rd down receiver, which could help. Receivers that can just, be reliable enough to move the chains, but we have to get into better 3rd downs, more so. And then 2-point attempts here, I was only 2 for 8, which is just awful. Red zone offense has some work to do. We only score a touchdown every other time we reach the red zone, not a very good rate. You can see the best teams here are scoring touchdowns way more than 50% of the time. And that's where we have to get. When it comes to defense, I think we do a really good job in the red zone of forcing field goals, and us being tough to run on makes us very difficult to overpower in the red zone. Plus, our corners made a lot of plays. We were still last in turnover differential, even with all those takeaways we had. We weren't like top 5 or anything, but when you're first in giveaways, that is a bad thing. All right, let's see some awards. Drew Brees, now a Kansas City Chief, wins the league MVP as the Chiefs go 11-5. Tom Brady just misses out, and the Cowboys, Zeke Elliott and Dak Prescott come in 3rd and 4th place. Coach of the Year, Griffin Murphy for the Patriots. Then NFC awards. Offensive Player of the Year is Ezekiel Elliott, who's already a 99 overall. Defensive Player of the Year is Navarro Bowman, and then Robert Quinn. 2 good career resurgences, and then you have Charles Johnson down here. Offensive Rookie of the Year is Seantrell Bennett from the New York Giants. The Defensive Rookie of the Year was my favorite player in the last draft class, A.J. Johnstone. I want to see his numbers. Dante Rooks gets 4th after being a 6th round selection. Best quarterback, Dak Prescott. Running back, Ezekiel Elliott. Receiver is Dez Bryant. Cowboys getting all these awards with a 9-7 team. I wonder if their defense is just really struggling. Charles Johnson, best defensive lineman. Wow. Navarro Bowman, best linebacker. DB is Richard Sherman, and Terrence Newman was in 2nd. Best kicker is Graham Gano, and we'll check on the AFC and see what's going on over there. Offensive Player of the Year, Le'Veon Bell. Defensive, Ndamukong Suh. Offensive Rookie is Quinston Barker. And he's only a 69 overall. I want to see what he did. Defensive Rookie of the Year is Spencer Nolan from the Jets. Best quarterback is Brady, then Bell, Allen Robinson. Offensive lineman is Marshall Yanda, Sue, Shane Ray. How about that season? Vontae Davis, Jason Myers. A.J. Johnstone, Rookie of the Year, and on his way to being a superstar. What did he do as a rookie? 11 sacks, 71 tackles. I think you could have considered giving it to Dante Rooks. The numbers were very similar. Well, I guess Johnstone had many more tackles. So, I guess in the AFC, Offensive Rookie of the Year wasn't the best battle. Quinston Barker won it. He's a rookie from Montana. He did not have a very efficient season, just 5 touchdowns. Did he catch a lot or something? Quinston Barker, I mean, yeah, he did decent, but this is not Rookie of the Year stats to me. Was he even drafted? He was a 5th round pick. In the NFC, it was Seantrell Bennett with 8 touchdowns for the Giants, almost 1,000 yards. He has superstar development. How many in the air? There's a lot of targets here to take from, but Bennett still got about 250 and 5. Okay, league leaders. Most passing yards is Dak Prescott. Most touchdowns, Tom Brady with 39. Interceptions, Tyrod Taylor, because we had 2 quarterbacks split time and each throw double-digit picks. Most sack quarterback is actually Jameis Winston, then Eli Manning. Trubisky's only in 4th. Todd Gurley gets the rushing title this year, 1,660 yards. Theo Riddick, how about that season? That's really good. Plus, he was efficient. Most touchdowns is Zeke. Derrick Henry, 17, on far less carries for far less yards. Receiving, 99 catches for Rob Gronkowski leads the league. Most yards is Julio Jones, then Dez and Odell Beckham. Most touchdowns, Dez, Robinson, Cam Meredith, Rob Gronkowski. That means Meredith was 8th in receiving yards, 1st in touchdowns, and I'm not sure where he is in catches here, especially if you take out the tight ends. But I think it's safe to say that Meredith was a top 10 receiver this season. Alright, now on the defensive side, Ndamukong Suh, 22 sacks. We helped him get there. Then Navarro Bowman, 10 picks, and we also helped him get there. From a financial standpoint, we did really well this year. I'll have to check what our payroll was, but obviously we have a lot of funds right now, and that gives us a lot of money to potentially use for free agents and maybe be big spenders this offseason, especially coming off a 9-win season. If we get a couple pieces, maybe we can make a run at the playoffs. Our best-selling jersey, at least in the last week, was still Jordan Howard's Pat McChesney is getting his jersey up here. He only sold 365 last week. Fans are not liking our backup quarterback enough. I might use some of our funds, though, to upgrade one of our stadium needs next year. Something like concessions would help bring in more revenue. I know Soldier Field's an older stadium. I haven't really done a lot on this menu before, so let's take a look. Yeah, we have a very low rating. I would much rather upgrade the stadium than rebuild it, because rebuilding is just, it's so expensive, especially if you're not a top tier team making a lot of money. That stadium lease, depending on what you get, can cost you like $2 million every week, and that's pretty significant. So we could renovate right now. We could upgrade plus 63, renovate plus 99. Okay, this is just parking. Just parking would cost us either $10 or $20 million. I'm going to wait until after the off-season to worry about this, I think. I'm not sure if the upgrades are immediate, if I do it like week 1 of the preseason next year. But I just don't think it's right to spend all these funds right now, and we have some upgrading to do to our team first. Now let's see some playoff results. Congratulations, Cleveland, winning a playoff game here against the Steelers in overtime. That's gotta feel pretty good. Cody Kessler, 3 touchdowns. I'm impressed. Who caught those touchdowns? Coleman. Sammy Coates against his former team. Always like the revenge touchdown. Rams over the Falcons. Raiders over Jacksonville. Then Seattle defeats Dallas, who was so good this season. Then in the divisional round, New England over Cleveland. Sorry, Browns. Seattle wins again. Kansas City over Oakland. Rams over the Bucks. Then in the conference games, New England's going to the Super Bowl to face Seattle. I expect to see some names here. Pro Bowl rosters. No running backs, but I'm looking at receiver. There it is. Cameron Meredith, the 3rd receiver in the NFC. He certainly earned it. And on the offensive line, Frederick Chickalo, Kyle Long, Cody Whitehair, Josh Sitton, Charles Leno? Okay. I'm not sure how backup tackles make it on here. This happens quite often in Madden. Then defensively, Leonard Floyd actually makes it to the Pro Bowl. I'm surprised Dante Rooks did not, but I feel like there aren't enough defensive line slots. Pernell McPhee makes it after that great finish to the year. Prince Amukamara, but no Terrence Newman. Richard Sherman was DB of the year, and he was only 4th. Then Adrian Amos, Pat O'Donnell, Tariq Cohen as a punt returner. That's great. I'll take whatever XP we can get for him. So now we can begin to look ahead to year 3 of the franchise, and the off-season is going to be streamed here on my channel on Saturday afternoon. I expect it to be around 2 or 2:30 Central Time. It'll be set here in the coming days. I'll have an event made on the channel that you can go into before the stream even begins. But now it shows years remaining here. I wish that this was fixed because Jordan Howard's contract isn't up. It shows players who are free agents this year and next year is having 1 remaining, so it's hard to really go through this at times. But Howard is not going anywhere, neither is Cody Whitehair. So obviously to keep these players around, it's going to take us saving some money for their eventual contracts. One of our key free agents is going to be Eddie Goldman, and I'll have to decide if he is going to be worth the big contract when he doesn't play a lot for us. I'm leaning towards no right now, even though he's a good player. Also because we have Jalen Egbo, who became his backup this year, and he shined for a while. I think he could take over that role and certainly be a much cheaper alternative. We also have to talk about Josh Sitton, who's still a really good guard, and we're probably going to have the money to keep him around. If it's a short-term deal or even the franchise tag, I think he'll be staying in Chicago. Overall, when I think about our needs initially, I'm worried about getting another tackle opposite of Frederick Chickalo. I've already been able to do a lot of upgrading to him. He got a lot of XP from the Pro Bowl, so that helps counter that slow development. He's still a solid player. but I do need a right tackle on this team. Maybe a young guard to eventually be a starter because Long is 30 and Sitton's 33. I think we could use some pass rush depth, especially because Leonard Floyd, we're still wondering what kind of player he's going to be. Pernell McPhee is getting older, and I don't think we have enough depth behind them. Willie Young has hardly played or produced. I think a middle linebacker is possible, especially if either Trevathan or Freeman aren't on the roster, but I do think that Marcus Calhoun can be a future starter for us. I wouldn't expect Terrence Newman to be back next year, but maybe it's possible. Regardless, cornerback is a need. So far on my draft board, I have 63 players, so quite a few right now, and we're still going to scout some more during the offseason. Let's meet some of my favorites. First off, we have 2 first-round picks this year, and it's a great year to need a receiver in the first round. If we want to compliment someone alongside Cameron Meredith, we'll have options. We have some speedy receivers like Andres Wary from Tennessee, who's an exceptional route runner. Ben Chapman from Auburn. Maybe they go too early though. They are early first-round prospects. What about a player like Solomon Baxter, who's a late first-rounder and is a possession receiver that catches everything? We could also look at a smaller receiver like Rowan Springs, who's a second-round talent and a great route runner. There are even some options for early tight ends. Marshall Barnes is probably my favorite. He has all 3 skills here in the top 3. He can catch at 6'6", 260. The key here is always seeing the combine grades and who has, the speed to be a vertical threat. I also think it's a great year to look for a first-round tackle. This year, our needs and our draft picks actually coincide really well after they didn't in year 1. We had to get a starting tackle and a starting corner, and it was really just like, first round's your only chance. If you miss out, you miss out. Now we have 2 first-round picks, and I expect us to do a better job filling our needs. And there are some good pass blockers here. Normally, these early-round linemen are better run blockers, but in terms of tackle, that's not the case. 4 here in the first round, all better pass blockers than run. Jabari Goodwin could be a target of ours. High impact, high pass block at 22 years old. If a player like Henry Larimore was a little bit down the board, maybe, but I just think he's going to go in the top 7 or 8 picks. Here's a player who could be really good. Bram Dirth from Oklahoma is a 6'6", 300-pound run stopper that also gets after the quarterback. He can hit. I think he's just going to be like a player that has no weakness that can beat you in any way from anywhere, like Joey Bosa. I'd say a lot of times that Madden doesn't have elite draft classes, but there are some truly elite players in this one. Antoine Tryon from Stanford is a pass rusher that might be one of the best players in this entire draft. I think he'll be in like top 5 of true talent with the B+ finesse, B+ block shed. Watch out for his combine. Someone's getting a good player. This is one of those drafts where I think the first round is going to really deliver. And to have 2 picks in the first is big. Now, for corner, I think we're going to be having a tougher time again fixing it in the draft, especially if you want to get multiple corners. Herb Chapman is a first rounder, and I don't think that I can take him in the first round in this kind of a class, depending on what falls down the board. Thankfully, there is a good second rounder, Curry Peters from UCLA. He is both decent at zone and man, and I'm looking to play a lot more man coverage, and he can actually press, which if he pairs up with Amukamara gives us more flexibility in what coverages we call and if we call press or not. There's even one of the best safety prospects I've seen in this class. Frank Olson, Texas A&M, 21 years old. He's really good in coverage, great hitter. I think he'll have like superstar development. You don't see too many safeties that are early first round talents. Want a running back? Go get Rodney Lattimore from Clemson with A elusiveness, B+ carrying, and I expect him to have good speed as a speed back type. I just see so many good first round players that I think there's going to be someone who shouldn't be there when we first pick in the first round. Let's talk value. C.J. Ross is a 4th round pick at running back that might be one of the best gems in the middle of this draft. Ross is 6'2", 213, great size, and he brings with it excellent elusiveness and a great juke move. I'm looking for that combine to hopefully give us at least 4.5 speed and some good bench reps. And if so, he could be a great 3-down back at a very low cost. Another thing about these early running backs, though, is that we have Matthews and Elliott here who are balanced. So they might not be the same power backs you normally see toward the top. They have a chance to run pretty fast and bring in agility, which makes them even more valuable. This class is loaded at the top with talent. It is way too early to project this now, but this is the type of class where we have our 2 first-round picks, and like the Vikings did back in 2012, we might trade up for a 3rd. It's that good of a class. That was actually the 2013 draft, wasn't it, with Rhodes, Floyd, and Patterson. Fun times. Anyway, here are the players that make up the entire board here. I know it's very focused on the early rounds, so I think our remaining scouting points need to be focused on value. And if I'm looking to perhaps give up a 2, a 3, maybe a 4 moving up, maybe I have to dig even deeper. So I believe there are a lot of reasons to be excited about the future of this franchise. We just finished 9-7. Offense looked better toward the end of the year. I think defense had a lot of great moments. And now we have a lot of cap space, 2 first-round draft picks, in what is a great first-round class, the best I've seen on Madden. Not just 18, I think maybe ever. So let me know in the comments section, who are your favorite prospects? I know it's hard to narrow down from these options, but give me your favorites in the comments. Let me know what moves you think we should make. What will help us get to the postseason next year? Thanks for watching, everybody. Off-season's coming your way, stream live here on my channel this Saturday afternoon. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'm looking forward to all your feedback. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.